Animal Rescue 911, what's your emergency? Just joking, but that is exactly what our next guest does here on Bring It to the Table. I'm so excited and blessed to introduce our next guest, Renee Gregoire. She is really, truly a pioneer woman with so many different facets to her life, which we're really excited to explore with you right now. So tell us, Renee, a little bit about what you do for EquidDoc Emergency Animal Services.
Well, we provide 24/7, 365-day care for large animals, and we're an ambulatory practice. The majority of our patients are equine, horses, but we also do goats, sheep, alpacas, and llamas. Not so many llamas as maybe we did at one time. That sort of is phasing out, but we still have an occasional one that we do. But I'm the voice on the phone when most of the clients call to make an appointment or if they're having an emergency.
And that is exactly how I know Renee. She has been a calming voice on the phone in some of my most, honestly, darkest times. And it's been really instrumental in me realizing that if I'm calm and zen, then the animal is calm and zen.
Right, right.
And you really hit that home for me as far as calm down.
Slow down.
Yes.
Who is this?
What's your animal emergency, right?
Right, exactly.
Yeah. And so I actually had to have you out just on Saturday, but she's right as rain now.
Yeah.
So it's always an ounce of prevention's worth a pound of cure, isn't it?
That's for sure.
Yes.
And you know, and it's so satisfying to me when somebody's having an emergency and things can play out well for them because they do stay calm and they become part of the team rather than a hindrance to us to being able to do our job. Because it's not only the negative effect that you have on the animal, but everybody who's trying to work around you, you just become a piece of the puzzle that's not a good fit at that time. Go boil water, I would think to myself. Go boil water. Go buy a gallon of milk, yes. Come back in 45 minutes.
You have such a wonderful point on that, though, because it's better to stay calm, and then it's not a crisis. It's just an emergency.
Correct.
That we need to treat.
Right.
And it's so funny because I know a lot of vets. Being an animal rescuer, I know all the best vets around, which Dr. Caitlin Eaton is one of the best vets around. I also know Dr. Annie Custer, and we were giggling about how many animals you have probably saved. And really, even our past guest, Kim Michek, we were also just having such a great time talking about you, talking about Buck Hill,
yes.
talking about Paula Orquette and
Susan Johnson.
Susan Johnson,
yes.
Exactly. Which I know that they still go into Breezy Garden. Are you still in contact with them as well?
Yes. Susan and I have really remained very close friends, and part of that bond is we both love kayaking.
Yes.
And I had gotten into that with her, you know, when I was first started working there. I was one of the first ones in the group to get a kayak, and it grew. There's a group of us that now, there's over 25 of us, and we've kayaked all over the East Coast. And Sue and I just both really enjoy kayaking, and you know, and I've really enjoyed maintaining that friendship. I still see Paula from time to time,
yes.
but not like I see Sue. I see Sue quite a bit.
So Sue and you are really actually very close.
Yeah, it's just Sue and I, we family-wise and whatnot, we've been through quite a bit together. And you know, her husband was really ill, and I was part of that. You know, when she lost her husband. So yeah, we have become very close over the years. And boy, you know, by the time they retired, I think I had been with them almost 30 years at that point, or very close to 30 years at that point.
Exactly.
So,
yeah. And so you had known her before you actually started working for Buck Hill, which is now EquidDoc Veterinary Service.
Correct.
Do you mind showing your piece of art here that you had showed us that is of the kayaking crew?
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about this. This, I think, is one of the most wonderful pieces that you have in that. Look at all the animals. Look at all of the personalities, the animalities that actually translate into each individual that's in your kayaking group.
That's right.
Who doesn't just get tickled pink trying to find
Figure
out
who they are.
who
Exactly.
and what you had perceived them to be as far as their personalities go. And how much are you really knowing on the kayak? But you actually learn a lot about individuals when you're doing this kind of thing.
Right.
Which was a funny story that you were saying about how sometimes, there's mishaps.
Oh, yeah.
And you're trying to have a nice, calm paddle down, and then it's like, okay, try to get off. And I think one of your ladies, she had to keep going in one of the extreme paddlers.
Oh, yeah. Somebody
had to save them.
Yes. Unfortunately, there's a section of the Deerfield River called Zor Gap, and it's really for only, proficient whitewater kayakers. Plus, you need a special type of boat actually to go through there.
And a helmet.
And she accidentally got caught. The takeout, I think, was to the left, and she didn't see it, or for whatever reason, and she ended up going through Zor Gap. And thank God there were a couple of guys that were playing in the water at the time in their boats, and they were able to haul her out. And one of them said, "You should have the helmet on. What are you doing in here?" She goes, "You think I did this on purpose?"
Exactly. And then we'd be doing Rescue 911, what's your emergency?
Yeah,
and that
exactly.
extreme kayaking, I mean, it is some of the most extreme sports I have ever seen.
Yeah, it is.
It gets real serious real fast.
Even when we're kayaking, when you don't know a river, because you read in the books, they're very good books that describe what's going to come up in the river, but you never know what has come to pass over the winter, like how many trees have come down.
Right.
And we've had some of our friends, get in a pickle where you get caught up in a tree that's now in the...
So many trees down now.
Yes,
and who's
exactly.
Who's pulling them out? No one.
Yeah. Right.
It's
a lot of work to try and get,
to
to try and
anything.
reroute an area through that so that, that you can get through safely. But yeah, we've had some fun days on the river. But yeah, this is Susan Johnson right here, because we're always saying, "Hey, Sue, let's talking and more paddling."
She doesn't even have a kayak.
Yeah, she's just floating on her back, and
shell.
she loves turtles.
She does. And so there you go. And isn't that wonderful?
But this was a piece that I had actually did for one of the girls in the group. That was, I think it was for maybe her 60th birthday, and we had a celebratory party for her, and I had done this as a gift from all of us.
Thank you for being a friend, right?
Yeah.
Oh, isn't
and
that
I really
wonderful?
enjoyed doing it too.
It's so, the whole thing is just, okay, I wish I had a kayak club, and could you do one for our kayak club? Because it's just such a wonderful thing to be a part of. Plus, it just shows how you get to know people over the years doing something fun, and how much you have to trust each other. To get into these types of situations.
And that's like, this is where we need to be, and this is, how we're going to coordinate the cars, and, things don't always go perfect, but, for the most part, we have been doing this for, I don't know how many years, probably 20 years, and we all still love each other, we're all still hanging around together.
Yes.
It's really hard to coordinate a big group like this. And we do things, throughout the summer, too. We might do a night out on Lake Lashaway, or we might do some of the local rivers, but there's just a good bunch. And we vary in age. I think when we first started doing it, the difference in age might have been 35 years, between the youngest of us and the oldest of us in the group. But there's just a good bunch of people.
Yes. Yep.
And I don't have a picture of we even made a logo. We're called the Kaleidoscope Kayakers, because we had, boats of so many different colors. So.
I love that. Yeah. That's incredible.
Yeah,
and so many different
bunch.
personalities.
Yes. Yeah.
Now, are you looking for more members?
Oh, we always welcome more people to come in,
So, do you mind, just for our viewers at home, what the name of your kayaking club is and how they might be able to look into it?
Well, we're associated with Lake Lashaway. That's probably where we do, that's where many of the members are from.
Yeah.
We don't actually have like a dedicated place we just we attract people. Like we'll be, out on the lake, and somebody be like, "Hey,
I'm about to sign up," because it's a real thing. You need to have people transport you.
Yeah, exactly. Or organize,
Right, yes.
Or know, what's a safe place. Like, we're all pretty much beginner, intermediate kayakers. Nobody's doing anything really wild, but, you need to know where you can go that's safe.
Yes.
Because
you really do.
Yeah, there are sections of any river that cannot be safe. The Weir River is a great place to paddle, but there are parts of it that are really, really kind of dangerous.
Yeah, they are. And there's very few rivers that you can paddle down and then paddle back up.
Yes, or that you can, have a safe place to leave a car on the other end, and you can paddle to that. And then the coordinating of all that, getting the cars to the other end.
Is there any safety tips you would want to share for our viewers at home that
don't paddle
kayak?
alone.
Always have a buddy. The buddy system.
Yeah.
The buddy system is real.
The best laid plans, and then something goes wrong. I mean, I have had some not so great experiences.
Right.
And, I was very, very lucky. There were days after that happened that I would wake up and think to myself, I am so lucky. I should have gotten killed that day, and I didn't.
Well,
and I was by myself.
You still have so many more animals to save.
Yeah, that must be it. God had other intentions for me that day.
Yes, exactly. You have more work to do.
Yes, that's exactly right.
Yes. So who's the seal? I just love the seal. And we got an otter here.
Yeah, so unfortunately, she has passed away, but it seems
Isn't that wonderful, though?
It seems like our friend was always like popping out of the boat, like just getting in, and all of a sudden she'd be in the water, and you'd be like, "What are you doing?" It wasn't that she was doing anything crazy. It was usually just getting in and out of the boat somewhere really safe. And then one of the
swim.
Well, no, she'd fall. She'd tip over and end up in the drink. And then one of the youngsters in our group, he's probably I'm calling him a youngster. He's probably in his 50s now, but he's a very skilled. When I first started doing this, Sue Johnson's husband, Ronnie, has a son named David. Okay. And he and David did whitewater canoeing.
Oh, wow.
And so David actually is a very good boat handler.
Nice.
And, he seems like he's always finding, when you're looking at a river, there's the safe path that's kind of like right down the middle.
Yes.
And then there's all these other places that you could potentially play. Like you see a little riffle on the side, or you see an eddy that you can pull into. So, he's just a very good boat handler, and you'll see him popping in and out of whatever thing that he can find. If there's a more advanced path on the river, he's usually on it.
Don't follow him.
No, unless you think you know what you're doing.
Okay, very good. Is he depicted here?
Yeah, that's him.
Oh, he's the seal.
He's the seal.
Oh, he's the Navy SEAL.
Yeah, he's just like he belongs in the water. He's just very, very, accomplished.
Isn't that amazing? So this is such a wonderful tribute to an amazing group of people that you get to have fun with and keep each other safe.
Yeah.
So that's wonderful.
And a good bunch of friends.
Yes.
And when the old poo hits the fan, which it always does in life, if anybody's going through a rough time, they're people that you can count on. They're people you can depend on.
Now, it's funny that you mention that because I find that is the most important thing that you can have is having a support system for when things aren't going so right.
Yeah.
And it's actually part of is it the centenarians, like those areas where people live to be over 100.
Yes.
That's one of the core things that they all have, that they have that community. And here, it used to be a part of the farm community.
Yes.
And I want to keep that alive so much because imagine if you're a farmer and let's say your barn burns down or it gets hit by a hurricane and all of these things happen, they happen right in our own towns.
Right.
To have a community that would help you out, to house your animals, to help you rebuild if you needed that sort of help. The peace of mind that you get from that is irreplaceable. And just think of the stress that people have that don't have that or don't have somebody to turn to. And that's why I think
they don't believe that that's there. You know what I mean?
Right.
And then they get in a pickle, and then all of a sudden the help starts kind of trickling in.
Yes.
I was thinking about our conversation that we're going to have today, and I know that it'll go full circle because I know eventually we'll talk about community service.
Yes.
And one of the things that I was thinking about was we're having a little bit of a hard time getting some of the young families when they come into town to become more involved in the town.
Yes.
And I think what I would love them to understand is that where you decide to reside, when you buy a house, that's a huge investment.
Yes, it is.
I mean, that's a really big chunk of your life. In the community you decide to reside in, that is your greater family.
Yes.
And I wish people would see it that way.
Yes.
Because you should have a say in what's going on in that family.
Yes.
You should want to know that how the schools are being run or organized, or some things that maybe that the police department is doing that you think that you could help them with, or you could allow them to do their job in a different way. that is our obligation. Your house is not where you pull in the driveway, go in the door, and disappear.
Right.
To me, that is not. My mother taught us kids that your community is your greater family,
Yeah.
and you should want to participate in that.
I love how you put that, because we all deserve a seat at the table, and we also need to be able to voice our needs,
Yes.
our truth. And
Right.
that is what not only the government, but especially the municipal and town organizations, that's what they're there for.
Right.
And I couldn't agree more, because it's our town, it's our community.
Right.
And if you're not voicing that, at least in public, so that people can know what that is, then you're either contributing, saying bad things about the town while not communicating your true needs,
Right.
or you're just turning a blind eye to it. Either way you choose,
Right.
you're not giving the town the benefit to know your voice.
I hear too many of the kids whining. I'm sorry.
Yes.
That is my explanation of what I hear too much of.
Yes.
And complaining about the way things are being done.
Yep.
But if you're not part of the solution,
Right.
then you have to recognize that you're part of the problem, because you're not helping to make things change. And
Correct.
if you want things to be different in your community, then you have to lend your voice, or lend your time, or lend an ear. Just listen to what's going on, because maybe you're not hearing the whole story, or maybe you don't understand the big picture of why things are being done the way that they're being done.
Or just vote.
Yes.
Just
that
vote.
too.
Right?
Right.
If you're going to complain, vote.
Yeah. Participate.
Yeah,
Don't
participate
just
in
pull
your
in the
local
driveway
government.
and go in the house.
Yes, exactly. So why don't we talk about that? Because you were saying that you have done 28 years, right, on the finance committee?
Yeah, I moved in the spring of '98,
And this is New Braintree.
and that was in New Braintree.
Yes.
And I think I'm pretty sure it was the month of May. And in the month of June, we had our annual town meeting. And during the annual town meeting, I just asked a couple of questions, because I was just, curious about how things were being done. And afterwards, somebody on the finance committee came over and said, you asked some good questions. Would you like to be involved in the finance committee? We have an opening. And I was like, well, I don't know. And she goes, well, just come to our meetings. Well, so I laugh about it, because you get elected to that position. And,
Yes.
and every time I would get elected again, I'd say to my friends, I got sentenced again. I got 2 more years.
No, it really is like that, because it's rewarding, but it's not necessarily fun. And
It can be a lot of work,
the finance piece is so very important now, because a lot of our towns are over budget. And you got to rein it in,
Yeah.
like, hey, where
And
is...
balance it.
Yes,
And
yes.
find that balancing
And who
point.
actually wants to do that? Because they're always like,
It is
pointing the
hard.
finger at the finance committee. Well, how are we this over budget? Well, this is how much you spent.
Yeah.
I'm just the messenger.
And and sometimes things just happen that you really don't have any.
Right.
If a big piece of equipment on the highway department,
Right.
right now we're looking at new fire trucks for the towns, and,
Yes.
and new fire trucks are between $750,000 and $1 million.
That was
and
with-
you can say to yourself, well, we'll just do municipal aid. Everybody can just kind of pitch in, but like. Okay, so the town that's got the fire truck, that's municipal aid, like they get stuck with the bill. We can't do it that way. Everybody has to, they have to be somewhat competent about being able to provide for
Right.
the people that are within their town.
And
It's
then-
great that we help out.
And then it's like $1 million, and then it's financed on top of that. And it's,
Yeah.
where is this coming from?
Yeah, I mean,
Right.
you just
But
don't
you need
know.
it.
Oh, yeah.
So it's kind of a rock and a hard place, and navigating that can be tricky with people having strong opinions.
Yeah.
So what would your advice be to someone wanting to make a difference in their town?
So I think one really good thing to do is to see if you can't either get in touch with somebody who works in the office of the select board
Yep.
or the town clerk, and just say, are there positions in the town that are going unfilled?
Yes.
That could that there's a committee that maybe, because I think most of us can find something that we can, whether it's the Parks and Recreation Committee, or
Right.
it's the Conservation, or the Board of Health. I
Right.
think we can all find a little niche that maybe we can, add our own talents to.
And because there is such lack of participation, you can do so much in your town that really makes a huge difference.
Yeah, absolutely.
It really does.
And so many committees are multi-manned. There's maybe 3 to 5 people, and we always are trying to find people to fill those slots.
Yes.
Because the other thing that's difficult is, yes, I did that for 28 years. The bad side of that is that I see it a specific way. Right. My experience has me view it a specific way.
Right.
My life experience has me, see it a specific way.
Right.
But then you get somebody new who comes in and goes, Renee, did you ever think of this? And you're like, I hadn't thought of that.
Right.
Even if it's not like, yeah, we're going to run with that idea, you need to have fresh eyes or fresh thoughts for how things could be different or how we could make things better.
Yeah, and really solutions come from listening.
Yeah.
Right? If
Absolutely.
you're doing the same thing over and over again and you're not open to, to having a solution,
right?
Because you're not going to find the solution in the same pattern that we've always been in.
Correct.
Well, it seems like to do things that people really want to make change, you have to go through the old system, but these new things aren't within that new system. Do you know what I mean?
Like specifically?
Specifically, like I like to use the example of like raw milk, on how farmers want to sell the raw milk right off the farm, but the legislation is that it can't be delivered, it has to only be bought on the farm. And that legislation was made by people who know nothing about transporting milk or being a dairy farmer, which brings us back to, you had this wonderful book. Is this the coloring book that you did?
Yes.
Could you just tell us a little bit about that, about how it reminisces on the old farm community and how we see it disappearing before our very eyes?
The thing that attracted me to the town of New Braintree is that's an agricultural community.
Exactly.
And I would really love to say that we would love to keep it as much as possible an agricultural community.
Absolutely.
It's really important because there are becoming situations where that's not the case. And we need to be able to provide for ourselves within the state. It's important that we can continue to, as much as possible, provide product within our own state.
Yes.
And Jeff Fisk wrote an excellent book about the history of New Braintree. And he did a beautiful job of researching and bringing all of that enjoyable history to light. So after I had read his, I thought to myself, it would be great for the young kids in our community to have an opportunity to learn their history in a fun way.
Yes.
So I created the New Braintree Brief History of the Town of New Braintree. And what I did was I called upon the farming past that we had, the North American Indians that settled the natives settled this area, and they fished and they farmed here.
And we used to live together.
Yes.
Yep, we used to trade together. We were interwoven.
Yes.
Yes.
And how New Braintree came to be was in the town outside of Boston called Braintree.
Yes.
They were kind of getting squeezed out, the dairy farmers and the farmers there, because as is happening now, land and the homes were being built, and the land was being bought up, and then they were getting squeezed out where they couldn't continue to farm.
Right.
And they approached the elders of their community, and they said, we need the town to purchase land to the west.
Yes.
So that we have summer pasture for our dairy cows.
Right.
And so we can continue to pursue our farming life.
Yes.
So it took them a while, but they finally did, and they bought that land, which is now called New Braintree, and it was definitely more cows than towns.
Yes.
Than there was people in the town at that time.
Amazing.
But that was the beginning of settling that town. Was summer pasture for the dairy. The dairymen from the Braintree area.
Isn't that beautiful?
Yes. The unfortunate thing is in our own town, we lost a fair amount of agricultural land to the solar farms. And that was really sad for me because, as a friend once told me, when I was clearing my lot, I took 100 trees down on this lot. And I wished I'd taken down another 50 just to get them a little further away from the house. And he goes, you know something, Renee? You can't put trees back.
You cannot. No.
So when he said that to me, I was like, He's right. So it makes me a little bit sad about the agricultural land that has, become solar farms, because you can't, it's going to be years before we could ever even try to regain that land if we wanted to. And it just seems sad that it seems sort of short-sighted, but I hope that it comes to pass, that it will be the answer to the energy problems that we're having, but. Right. I guess we'll have to wait and see how that plays out.
I think that there's a balance to be found, because there, no food, no farms, no food type of thing.
Although I have to say, we're getting smarter about farming better in smaller areas.
Yes, we are.
So that is, to see that's quite incredible to me. And then the farms that are up in Maine, I can't remember his name. He's a wonderful author to follow. But the winter farming that they're doing, and growing, tomatoes, and growing
all year round,
greens all year round. I mean, and that is so important, because I think it would be really tough to convince people that they had to eat what was in season. Right. But to be able to try and do some of those things, so we could have some of those things all year round. But that is one of the ways that we could really kind of help ourselves energy-wise, is to try and, use the resources you have within your own area, within your own communities.
And that's why dairy was so important, because you could do it all year round. And now they have things like a biodigester that actually converts the methane into energy. Right. And that can power like a whole town. Right. So there is hope in the future of agriculture and technology, I think, for sure.
Yeah, if we can continue to try and blend them. And it really does make me very happy to see my cousin went to school at it's one of the oldest agricultural schools in the United States. It's up in Vermont, called Sterling College. Right. And he is right now training to become an organic farmer, because he really wants to do that. And, he's in his 20s. That makes me so happy. Yes. And, when I would go to school to visit him, and he had these classmates that were in their, late teens and early 20s, all these kids that wanted to do farming, it was like, oh, thank God.
Future farmers of America.
Thank God these kids still want to do it. That's a hard life.
It is.
That's not an easy life.
That's why I try to educate the kids at David Prouty through the Agriculture and Forestry Department, because we need future farmers.
Absolutely.
If we don't teach them, it's
a lost.
It is a lost art, and we do need it for our own community sustainability.
Right.
So that being said, I want to kind of backtrack a smidgen. So you grew up on a farm.
No, I didn't.
Oh, you didn't grow up on a farm?
Oh, I'll tell you the story about not growing up on a farm.
Okay.
My mother,
yes,
who was an excellent student,
yes,
moved from the city to a farm and hated everything. She did not want to be on that farm. She wanted to go back to school, because once they moved out to the country, that was the end of her schooling. And I think she was maybe like 12 years old when her school career ended. And it was a hard life.
Yes, it is.
And so, of us 7 children, 2 of us, my brother and I, really were like, it kind of was in our blood. We must have gotten it from our grandfather. I don't know. I mean, the rest of the gang really likes to do gardening. Yes. They all have beautiful yards. Yes. But Raymond and I really kind of had the whole idea of farming. And my mother was so disgusted with the whole thing. She couldn't believe it. Of all the things you would choose, why are you following? Why are you pursuing that?
That seems to be a common theme of our guests on this show. But everybody says they're so glad that they stuck with it and stayed true to who they truly are, and because we're making it. Yes.
So I really wanted to go to vet school, but I really couldn't see myself doing that, because I couldn't afford it. And my parents said, you just don't do that. You don't put yourself in that kind of debt when you're that young. So I was like, okay. So I went to art school.
And here we are.
Yeah, so here we are.
This is the interesting thing. I had gotten the Christmas card from EquidDoc, who is based in Spencer. And I actually thought you lived in Spencer. Okay. I had no idea that you lived in New Braintree, but Braintree is gorgeous. Yes. And I can see why you love it so much. So how about you tell us a little bit about I didn't realize that you were an artist.
Yeah, so I went to the Worcester Art Museum, and we were actually, that school had been in existence since, I believe it was the early 1900s, and it was a wonderful school. Yes. I mean, you don't appreciate it until you're much older, but we had some incredible teachers. Some phenomenal, world-class teachers
really
at that school.
The Worcester Art Museum does attract world-class talent.
Oh, it was unbelievable. Yes. It was a great experience, and I really did enjoy it, but I wished I had been mentally a little bit more mature at the time.
Don't we all?
Yeah. So anyway, so I graduated from the Worcester Art Museum, and I started my career in graphic design. And shortly after that, I finally got my first horse, which I had wanted since I was a kid. But my mother said, when you have a full-time job, that is the hobby of kings and queens. You can get a horse when you have a full-time job.
Isn't that the truth, though, right?
So I finally got my horse, and through that, I met Wendy Warner, who
Yes.
had a farm here in Spencer, and through her, I met another friend who was also a graphic designer, and I started doing a little bit of work on the side for him. And I thought to myself, maybe I'll just work on my own, and
Yep.
I'll work for him, and I'll kind of try to create my own career. So that went pretty well, and then I eventually started working actually for Wendy Warner on the farm.
Yes.
And at the time that I was working there, Paula Orchid,
Yes.
who was half of the Buck Hill Veterinary Service team, was boarding her horse there.
Ah, here the pieces come together on how the magic happened to make you the
Exactly.
perfect lifestyle.
Exactly. So one day she came out to the barn and I said, I've always wanted to work in the veterinary field. If there was ever an opening at that place, boy, I would just love to work for you. And she goes, well, it just so happens that the girl who works in our office would like to go to part-time. And I'm like, really? So she said, let me talk to Sue. So she went back and she talked to Sue, and then I started working for them full part-time. And actually within like 6 months, I think, of starting that, the girl who had been working for them was like, I think I want to spend more time being home when my daughter comes home. I just don't feel like I want to be working when she's still in school. So then I started working full-time for them.
The Lord works in mysterious
Yes,
ways,
he
doesn't it?
does.
Because
He
it
does.
sounds like it was meant to be.
Yeah.
Plus, I think it's like the perfect position for you because you kind of get the all of the event where you get to be that calming force without having to go.
Yes.
And the thing that I notice about your artwork that I love so very much, which you can see on the coloring book and just in the faces of the animals, there's this calm peace to them that just exudes your love for nature and farming.
Yes,
That, that you can see it. You can see the love through the eyes of each and every animal that you draw.
Yeah.
So show us some of your artwork. I'm dying to see some of it. So we got your kayak portrait.
This is a watercolor that I did while I was taking a class over at Workshop 13 in Ware, which, by the way, is a wonderful place. There's some really good artists there, and the classes that they offer are really enjoyable. And I was taking a class with Gary Lippincott at the time, and this is my memories of growing up and going to my aunt's house on a pond. And, my uncles pushing each other off the raft, and my crazy cousins who would do the water skiing.
Yes.
They used to-
yes, there they are.
They would take a tabletop like this, and they'd put a chair on it.
Yes.
And they would ride that tabletop, sitting on the chair, around the lake. They used to just do the craziest
This is how
stuff.
you could take these leaps of faith, huh?
Yeah.
You're like, I can make a career out of art if they can put a table on a...
Yeah, exactly, on the water and ride it.
Yes, exactly.
So that's that watercolor that depicts my memories of that. And this drawing is actually the opening scene of a book that I hope I will eventually get to work on.
Oh, so it's a work in progress
It's
here.
a work in progress.
Looks very enticing. I like the
And,
monster in the window.
So a friend of mine's little girl was having a nightmare one night,
Okay.
and her dad went up to the bedroom and said, "What's the matter?" She goes, "I just had a nightmare that pirates and dragons were coming into my room."
Oh no! And here's the story.
And this being if pirates and dragons should come to your room.
Do people love their animal personification?
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
they're like.
Very much so.
I'm wondering what kind of animal I would be. Isn't that great?
Yeah.
So you also have not only illustrated other people's books, you also have written your own. So you've
Right.
written and illustrated, and it seems like something that you're kind of itching to get back on.
I am, and because I've got a couple, I actually really like books that are illustrated but have no words. You don't see a lot of them, but when they're done well, they're very enjoyable because it's kind of fun because I think it's a great way for a kid to tell a story to an adult because
Yes.
you can interpret it however you want. I mean,
Yes.
whatever my intention was when I illustrated it, you may see it a different way, but it's a great way for a kid to look at it and follow the course of what's happening across the illustrations and then make up their own story about it.
And there are so many nonverbal people.
Yeah.
It's such a wonderful way for them to take part in the joy of
Right.
storytelling.
Right, exactly.
And let's not forget, it wasn't always recorded.
Right.
It was always
Word of mouth.
Word of mouth.
That's how we pass things along, was word
Yes,
of mouth.
exactly.
Yes.
So this is your book.
This is my book. Yep.
And we're wondering if you can kind of do a little excerpt, because we're hoping to have you do a little children's story time at Spencer Public Library. Stay tuned.
So when I first came out with this, I was actually reading it at some of the libraries, and of course COVID came along, and that was the end of going out in public and reading it at libraries. But I was really enjoying doing that. So rather than hold up my small book that I had created, I did the illustrations up larger, and then I would just put them up on the podium like this.
It works
and then
so well.
I would go from page to page this way. So high on a hill overlooking a dell sat Natty the ewe and her best friend Belle. Each evening at dusk the two of them met. They sat close to each other to watch the sunset.
Oh my God, it rhymes. That's a true gift. It really is.
One warm summer night as they munched on their hay, a great swarm of flies came and chased them away. Across the green meadow the two friends did flee, hiding under the branches of a tall shady tree.
I love this.
So I really like writing in rhyme.
Yes.
I really enjoy it, and I have gotten two sides to being receptive, not receptive to that, and some people who have worked in the children's book industry say that people don't like, I shouldn't say people,
No, I know exactly.
producers don't like, the
Right.
people who will sell them don't like books that are written in rhyme. But when I have talked to adults who love to read to their children, they love to read in rhyme.
Yes.
I find it's a little bit easier to read to children in rhyme, so I will probably continue to do whatever I come up with for ideas. I will probably continue to write in rhyme.
It's interesting you say that, because I took one class at Worcester Art Museum with the lady who wrote Everything I Learned from My Cat.
Yeah.
And she said the same thing, that publishers just,
Right,
only
publishers.
Dr. Seuss can rhyme. Don't
Right.
even try it. Don't even go for it. And I like it because it's poetry.
So the thing that's beautiful about self-publishing
Yes.
is that you can kind of snub your nose at them and say, you know what, I'm doing this because I like it. I'm not looking at
Right.
trying to make a career out of this.
Right.
I'm writing this book, or I'm writing whatever books I'm writing, because I enjoy doing it. So, I'm going to do what I want to do regardless of what you tell me. And, I have to tell you that I don't think I've ever had anybody pick up my book and read it and go, wow, I wish this didn't rhyme.
I love it so much.
Yeah.
It's 'cause growing up on Dr. Seuss, it's soothing.
Yeah.
It
And
really,
it's fun to read that way.
It
It
is.
makes it rhythmical, I think,
Yes.
sometimes. And then, of course, once you read it and then you kind of get to know it, you can really kind of animate it a little bit more with your voice, because, you kind of, it's sing-songy to me.
Well, on behalf of Spencer Library, we are so excited to have you
Yeah,
read this
really
book
enjoy
for the
that.
kids. That'll be so great. And we'll have it on Spencer Cable Access and YouTube for you down the line. So we're looking forward to that. Show us more of your art. I can't get enough.
So in addition to enjoying illustrating this way, I have started, probably maybe 5 or 6 years ago, creating my own line of greeting cards.
Isn't that wonderful?
And I sell them out of the hardware co-op, and I also sell them just...
Oh my God, I've seen them.
Yes.
Yes.
And I also just sell them, via my email. I would love to, maybe when I'm retired, be able to have the time to maybe do an Etsy. I have a friend who is doing really well selling cards through Etsy, but it's an investment in time, and I don't have the time to focus on it. And I want to do it well, or I'm not going to bother doing it. So anyhow, these are my cards that I sell at the hardware co-op, and I really enjoy doing that also.
They are beautiful.
Thank
and
you.
That's what the lady too, that's how she got her start. The Everything I Learned from My Cat was greeting cards. She
Yes.
had been doing greeting cards, and it's such a wonderful way to share your art and give the gift
Right.
that you're meant to give to
Right,
this earth.
right. I also took a class on bookmaking, again at Workshop 13. And so when I first illustrated Yucky Yo Lucky, I actually, the first 20 books that I made,
You
I
bound them yourself?
I hand bound them.
Oh my goodness.
Which is really a
What
fun thing to do.
It's a labor of love, though.
It is a labor of love, but
Yep.
boy, once you get the hang of it, it kind of goes right along. But
Wow, you
it's
did a
and
wonderful job.
what an incredible gift to give to somebody.
Yes,
you know?
it is. Look,
So-
your own printed book.
Yeah, exactly. So
That would be a whole episode on itself, how you printed and made that book.
Yeah, there was a really good class that they had at Workshop 13, and she taught us quite a few different ways, and this particular way was the way that I felt would really work well for this. And so, being able to self-publish, what a wonderful thing. Like I said, again, not expecting to make millions on it, but just to have an idea in your head and then be able to see it come to life.
Yes.
I mean, that's an incredible thing.
I go to Tybalt's Country Store because he's the grain guy, and I was just mentioning because he was interested in who was on the show next,
Right?
And he was like, I bet he would like your greeting cards, and he wanted you to read the story as well. So
I'd love to do that.
Yeah, I know you're such a pillar in the Spencer community. I hope
That's
you know
so
that.
funny.
Well,
Yeah, I've been here a long time. I think it was 87 was when it was 85 actually when I first started working for Wendy Warner.
oh wow.
And I think it was in 87 that I started working for Paula and Sue.
So you've been working in Spencer for
Oh yeah, longer than I mean. I've been. By the time I retire from EquidDoc, I'll have been there for I think almost 40 years.
well, that's when you can launch your
That's
greeting
when I
card
can launch
empire.
my greeting card business.
Please show us some more.
So my sister Janice lived in a rural village in Alaska, and they were going to be having some very high-level politicians from the state coming through, and they really wanted to doll up the town, and for this occasion. So she asked me to design a banner that they would hang down Main Street for when these politicians were going to be coming to their community, and this was the illustration that I had come up with. So that was a really fun project, and I think they were like 2 feet by 4 feet, and they hung, right down the center of town. So that was another fun project. I unfortunately I've also really enjoy carving,
Yes.
but I don't keep anything that I make.
Yes.
I give it away. And in the last couple of years, I've started making whirly-gigs, which I really enjoy doing.
What's a whirly gig?
So my a whirly gig is those things that you see out in people's yard where it's some type of a propeller that creates motion and makes something else happen. So the first one that I did was a whirly gig that had a little guy with a chainsaw, and he was cutting a log. And then the next one that I did was my sister and her husband just celebrated their 50th anniversary, and it is her with a little watering can in her hands, and she's watering and he's riding his tractor on the other end of it. So I really enjoy working on those too. So it's fun to have the
That is a
that
one
as
of
a hobby,
kind sort of thing.
Oh,
Which
yeah.
leads me, so you kind of come from an outdoorsy type family, and you truly are a pioneer woman. You were telling me that you built your own house.
Yeah, my brother-in-law and his brother and I, on Christmas Eve, we were, actually Sue Johnson helped me do this. You talk about a good friend. Helen also, who used to work for us, the three of us were painting tar on the foundation on Christmas Eve.
Oh, that's
friends, boy.
Yes, it is.
What a mess that was.
Oh.
So anyhow, yeah, so I did. I built my brother-in-law and his brother and I, we built a little house that I live in New Braintree, and I did most of the finish work on the inside of the house. Just slowly, with the help of my dad, we made it happen, and it was a great learning experience. I have a friend that prior to working on my own house, I had helped him do some work on his house. So I had a decent base of knowledge. And, I just would tell myself, like when you're framing out a door or something like that, it's like, Renee, we're not building fine furniture. We're just framing the door. Just frame the door.
I'm sure these skills translated into your carving, though, as well.
Oh, yeah. And I love working with my hands.
Yes. And
I like learning new things.
Isn't that wonderful?
Yes.
You can learn for as long as you
Yes.
live. And there's actually science behind the feel-good chemicals that are released by actually doing and
I
making
believe
things with
that.
your hands, which is inspirational for this show in general, just to show what people can do and create with so many different skills to bring their art to the table.
Right.
Isn't that wonderful?
It is.
Renee, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
And I can't say enough how many animals you've saved and what an interesting group of skills that you bring to the table and how wonderfully you share it with the community.
Thank you.
Thanks again for coming in.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Thank you all for joining us here for Bring It to the Table. Next show, we're going to have Apple Blossoms on. Both owners are going to grace us with their presence. So I hope that you join us next time on Bring It to the Table. Thanks again.